The road stretched ahead, winding through the darkened landscape. The only sound was the soft hum of the engine and the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. My friends and I were on a road trip, seeking adventure and escape from the monotony of everyday life. Little did we know that our journey would lead us to a mystery beyond our wildest imagination. I was at the wheel, navigating the twists and turns of the unfamiliar terrain. Lisa, my adventurous best friend, was seated beside me, while Mike, our tech-savvy companion, lounged in the back seat. The three of us had been through many escapades together, but nothing could prepare us for what lay ahead. As the night deepened, we found ourselves in need of a refuel. The fuel gauge was perilously close to empty, and our phones were devoid of reception. It was then that a faint glow caught my attention in the distance, a gas station sign flickering in the darkness like a distant beacon. "There's a gas station up ahead," I announced, relief washing over me. "We're saved." Lisa perked up, her eyes brightening. "Thank goodness. I was starting to worry we'd be stranded out here." We pulled into the gas station, its eerie illumination casting long shadows across the pavement. A sense of unease settled over me, but I brushed it off as mere exhaustion from the road. "Stay here," I instructed my friends as I got out of the car and began to refuel. The air was chilly, and I shivered as I pumped the gas. When I finished, I replaced the nozzle and re-entered the car. "All right, let's get back on the road," I said, starting the engine. As we drove away from the gas station, I noticed something peculiar on the dashboard. The fuel gauge was dropping rapidly, as if the gas I had just pumped was vanishing before our eyes. "Guys, something's wrong," I exclaimed, my heart racing. Lisa twisted around to look at the fuel gauge. "What? How is that even possible?" Mike leaned forward, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Did you not pump enough gas?" I shook my head, my anxiety growing. "No, I filled it up. It should have been enough to get us to the next town." We exchanged worried glances as the fuel gauge continued its descent. Panic surged through me as I realized we were in danger of being stranded in the middle of nowhere. "We need to find help," Lisa urged, her voice tinged with desperation. I glanced at my phone, hoping for a signal, but there was nothing. The gas station had been our only lifeline, and now it seemed to be a trap. "There's no other gas station for miles," I muttered, frustration and fear mingling in my tone. As we drove on, the fuel gauge plunged lower and lower, and the sense of isolation grew more intense. It was as if the night itself was closing in around us, suffocating us in its darkness. "We can't just sit here," Lisa said, her voice shaky. "I know," I replied, my mind racing for a solution. "We'll have to go back to the gas station and see if they can help." We made a U-turn and headed back towards the station, its dim lights piercing the darkness. As we approached, we noticed a figure standing near the pumps, but before we could get a clear look, it vanished. "Did you guys see that?" Lisa's voice trembled. "It was probably just a trick of the light," Mike suggested, although even he seemed uncertain. We parked the car and entered the station. The air inside was stale, and a sense of unease settled over me. An attendant stood behind the counter, his eyes heavy with weariness. "You folks having trouble with your gas?" he asked, his voice low and filled with understanding. I explained our bizarre predicament, expecting a look of disbelief or perhaps a chuckle, but instead, the attendant's expression remained somber. "Happens more often than you'd think," he replied, his gaze distant as if he'd seen this scenario play out countless times before. Lisa rolled her eyes, clearly not buying into the attendant's words. "Do you know what's causing it?" He hesitated for a moment, then leaned in closer. Legend has it, this station was built on ancient burial grounds. Some say it's cursed. Mike laughed, a skeptical grin on his face. Cursed? Seriously? The attendant's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of something in his gaze, a mixture of warning and desperation. Laugh all you want, but you won't find help unless you confront what's out there. We left the station, the attendant's words echoing in our minds. Determined to find answers, we ventured out into the darkness once more. Shadows seemed to dance at the corner of our vision, disappearing whenever we turned to face them. I swear I saw something move over there, I said, pointing towards a stack of crates. Mike's skepticism seemed to waver, and Lisa clung to my arm. I don't like this. Let's just go back to the car. But a strange curiosity drove us forward, propelling us towards an old shed at the edge of the station's property. The door creaked open, revealing a dusty interior filled with forgotten relics. As we stepped inside, whispers filled the air, faint and barely audible. The shed seemed to come alive, the shadows undulating as if they had a life of their own. A diary sat on a dusty shelf, its pages yellowed with age. I picked it up, and as I flipped through its contents, words seemed to materialize on the pages, recounting the station's dark history. Decades ago, a young man had set fire to the station, resulting in a tragic loss of life. Rumors of spirits and strange occurrences had plagued the station ever since. The diary seemed to draw us in, its words captivating us with their tragic tale. And as the final page turned, the shed seemed to grow darker, shadows coalescing into a figure before us. An apparition stood before us, its form shifting and flickering like a ghostly candle flame. It was the spirit of the young man, his eyes filled with sadness and regret. "Release me from this curse," his voice echoed in our minds, the words resonating with a mix of longing and desperation. Lisa's grip on my arm tightened, her fingers trembling. "What do we do?" I stepped forward, meeting the spirit's gaze. "We'll release you, but in return, you have to let our gas stay in the tank." The spirit's form seemed to waver, as if he was considering my offer. And then, with a slow nod, he faded into the shadows, his presence dissipating into the air. The whispers ceased, the air growing still once more. We left the shed, a sense of accomplishment and unease settling over us. As we returned to the car, we watched in amazement as the fuel gauge slowly began to rise, the gas within the tank remaining steady. With bated breath, I turned the key in the ignition, the engine roaring to life. As we pulled away from the gas station, the fuel gauge held steady, defying the inexplicable phenomenon we had faced. In the rearview mirror, I saw the gas station grow smaller, its lights flickering before finally fading into the distance. The mysteries of that fateful night would stay with us, a reminder that sometimes, the truth is stranger than fiction. And as the road stretched out before us once more, I couldn't help but wonder about the countless other travelers who had passed through that forsaken station, each leaving behind a story, a piece of a puzzle that could never truly be solved. The night was dark and quiet as I drove down a desolate stretch of highway. It had been hours since I'd seen another car, and the isolation was starting to get to me. The flashing neon sign of a gas station up ahead was a welcome sight, promising a brief respite from the loneliness of the road. Pulling into the gas station, I parked the car and stretched my legs, grateful for a chance to stretch and use the restroom. The station itself was old and worn, the paint on the walls faded from years of exposure to the elements. Despite its worn appearance, there was a sense of nostalgia about the place, a reminder of a simpler time. I entered the gas station's convenience store, the jingle of a bell announcing my arrival. The cashier, an elderly woman with tired eyes, gave me a weary smile as I made my way towards the restroom. As I stepped into the restroom, I was hit by a musty smell that seemed to cling to the air. The room was dimly lit, the flickering fluorescent lights casting an eerie glow. The faucets at the sink were old and worn, and as I washed my hands, I noticed something strange. The faucets seemed to turn on and off on their own, the handles moving without anyone touching them. I stared at the faucets, my heart pounding in my chest. The rational part of my mind told me there must be a logical explanation, perhaps a plumbing issue causing the faucets to malfunction. But deep down, a feeling of unease began to settle over me. As I dried my hands, the lights above me flickered, casting a series of eerie shadows on the walls. The unease I felt grew stronger, like a weight pressing down on my chest. I glanced around the restroom, my eyes searching for any signs of movement or explanation. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible over the hum of the lights. I froze, my heart racing as I strained to hear it again. The whisper seemed to be coming from one of the stalls, the words unintelligible yet laden with an undeniable sense of sadness. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was no response, just the sound of my own breathing echoing in the quiet room. I took a hesitant step towards the stall, my curiosity overcoming my fear. The stall door creaked as I pushed it open, revealing an empty space. But the whisper persisted, seeming to come from all around me. I took a deep breath and steadied myself, convinced that my imagination was playing tricks on me. But then, as if in response to my skepticism, the lights above me flickered once more, and a cold breeze swept through the restroom, sending a shiver down my spine. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice quivering. The whisper grew louder, its words becoming clearer yet still just out of reach. It was as if the very air was carrying a message, a story that begged to be heard. I stepped back from the stall, my heart pounding in my chest. As I did, I caught a glimpse of a faded newspaper article pinned to the wall, a memorial to a janitor who had tragically lost his life in a restroom accident at this very gas station. The pieces of the puzzle began to come together in my mind. The faucets turning on and off, the whispers, the unexplained cold breeze, it was as if the janitor's presence still lingered in this place, his spirit unable to move on from the tragedy that had claimed his life. I stood there, staring at the newspaper article, the weight of the revelation settling over me. I realized that the janitor's spirit was trying to communicate with me, to tell his story and seek some form of closure. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes and spoke into the stillness of the restroom. "I hear you. I know you're here." The lights above me flickered once more, but this time, the flickering seemed to be accompanied by a sense of peace. The whisper grew fainter, as if the janitor's spirit was finally finding some form of release. I left the restroom, the weight of the encounter still heavy on my mind. As I walked back to my car, I glanced back at the gas station, knowing that I had been a part of something otherworldly, something that defied explanation. As I pulled back onto the highway, I couldn't shake the feeling that the janitor's spirit was no longer trapped within the confines of the gas station restroom. He had found his voice, his story had been heard, and in some small way, I had played a part in giving him the closure he so desperately needed. The road stretched out before me, the darkness enveloping the landscape. And as I drove on into the night, I couldn't help but wonder how many other places held stories of the past, stories that lingered just beneath the surface, waiting for someone to listen. The wind whistled through the trees as I stood in the dim light of my study, my eyes fixed on the mysterious old map spread out before me. The map was ancient, its edges worn and its paper yellowed with age. It had been given to me by an eccentric old man I had met in a curiosity shop, and he had whispered tales of its magical properties and hidden secrets. Curiosity had gotten the best of me, and now I found myself tracing the faded lines and symbols with my fingers, trying to decipher its cryptic message. The map depicted a land that seemed almost familiar, yet slightly askew, as if it existed in a reality parallel to our own. My attention was drawn to a particular spot marked with a small, hand-drawn gas station icon. The location was peculiar, it wasn't listed on any modern maps, and I had never heard of it before. The old man's words echoed in my mind, "Follow the map's directions, and you'll find the answers you seek." With a mix of apprehension and excitement, I decided to heed the map's call. As I drove through the night, the roads grew unfamiliar, and the world around me seemed to blur with an otherworldly quality. The map's directions guided me through twists and turns, leading me deeper into the unknown. Eventually, I found myself on a desolate road that seemed to stretch into infinity. The map indicated that I was close to my destination, the mysterious gas station. My heart raced as I spotted a flickering neon sign in the distance, its letters spelling out "Fuel and Fare." The gas station stood in stark contrast to the surrounding darkness, its lights casting an eerie glow. I parked my car, my footsteps echoing in the quiet night as I approached the pumps. As I got closer, a chill crept down my spine, and a sense of foreboding settled over me. The air seemed heavier, as if charged with an unnatural energy. My eyes were drawn to the gas station attendant's booth, and as I approached, I saw a figure inside, a spectral figure with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through my very soul. "Welcome," the figure spoke, its voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. I felt a knot form in my stomach, my instincts screaming at me to turn and run. But I stood my ground, my curiosity outweighing my fear. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice quivering. "I am the guardian of this place," the figure replied. "You have entered a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead are thin. Danger lurks in every corner, and you must be cautious." The figure's words sent shivers down my spine, and I glanced around, suddenly aware of the stillness that enveloped the gas station. The world seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something to happen. "What do you mean by danger?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure leaned closer, its hollow eyes locking onto mine. "The map has led you here for a reason. It has shown you a path to navigate this perilous realm, but you must be vigilant. The creatures that dwell in this place are not of the living world, and they hunger for the energy of the living." A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I processed the figure's words. The reality of the situation was sinking in. I was in a place that defied all logic, facing threats that were beyond my comprehension. What should I do? I asked, my voice trembling. The figure extended its hand, and a spectral map materialized before me. The symbols and lines seemed to shift and change, forming a new path that led deeper into the gas station. "Follow the map's guidance," the figure instructed. "It will lead you through the challenges that await you. But remember, time is of the essence. The longer you linger in this realm, the stronger the forces that seek to consume you become." With a mixture of fear and determination, I took the map from the figure's hand and studied its intricate details. The path it indicated was winding and complex, leading me through corridors and chambers that seemed to twist and turn in impossible ways. As I followed the map's guidance, I encountered strange and unsettling sights, ghostly figures that lingered in the shadows, echoing whispers that seemed to come from all directions, and doorways that led to seemingly endless mazes. Each step I took felt like a test of my resolve, a battle against the unseen forces that sought to ensnare me. I clung to the map, its cryptic symbols guiding me through the darkness, offering me a thread of hope in a world that defied all logic. Eventually, I reached a chamber that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The air crackled with tension, and I knew that I had reached a pivotal moment in my journey. The map indicated a doorway, and as I stepped through, I was confronted by a creature, a twisted amalgamation of shadows and malice. I held the map before me, its symbols glowing with an ethereal light. The creature recoiled, its form flickering as if unable to withstand the map's power. With a surge of determination, I stepped forward, the map held high. The creature let out an ear-piercing wail before dissolving into a plume of smoke, vanishing into the void. The gas station seemed to tremble, and the air grew still once more. The spectral attendant appeared before me, its gaze filled with a mixture of approval and sadness. "You have passed the test," it spoke, its voice carrying a note of finality. "You are free to leave this realm, but remember the lessons you've learned." As I stepped back into my own world, the gas station and its spectral attendant faded from view. I found myself standing on the side of a road, the dawn's light painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. The old map had guided me through a journey that defied explanation, a journey that had tested my courage and resolve. As I looked down at the map clutched in my hand, I realized that its power lay not just in its mystical properties, but in the lessons it had taught me about facing the unknown and confronting the darkness that resides within us all.